All right, this is a fun one here. We get to plot some points and see if we can find a trig function that passes through them. So let's get a screenshot. Okay, so the x's go from 0 to 12. The y's range from like 5 to -7. All right, so let's bring up a grid that shows that. So y's go from 5 to -7. So maybe our axis is going to go around there. And that one needs to go from 0 to 12. So scale, how about 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. And let's see, put in a few other numbers, 2, 4, and 6, say. All right, other way, we're gonna go up to 5. So maybe I'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and down to 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, -5, 6, 7. And graph paper would help. So I highly recommend graph paper. And then let's plot those points. 0, 5, so we have a point there. 2, -1, point there. 4, -7, so down here-ish. 6, -1, oh, I'm starting to see a pattern here. 8, 5, all right, so we've just done a period. 10, -1, that looks like our midline, huh? 12, -7, we bottom out again. All right, so there's my function. So I'm going to attempt to trace this, wish me luck. So my wave would start up here and then drop down through that point, come up through that point, drop down again through that point, and then it bottoms out and it's going to head up again and repeat this. And over here, it should head down. All right, so that's the wave. We just got to try and identify it. So double check some things. I think the midline is -1 based on those points, but to confirm that, right, we can calculate our midline. We've done that before. The midline is right in between the max and the min. So we just average the max and the min. So what is 5 plus -7 divided by 2? -2/2 is -1. All right, so we confirmed y equals -1 is the midline. So we know the vertical shift of this now. Let's draw that in, say, blue. So that's my midline. The amplitude of this, right? That's the distance from the midline to the max, or the midline to the mix, to the min. So to find that one, we just find the half the distance from the top to the bottom. So that would be take 5, subtract -7, divide by 2. So 5 minus -7 is what? 12, divide by 2 is 6. And yeah, that looks right, right? -1 to -7 is 6, -1 to 5 is 6. So that seems good too. So we got that. Other thing is the distance from the peak to the next peak. That would be the period right there. And we're getting a period here of, what is that? That takes me over to 8, from 0 to 8, right? That gives me that period there. So the period is 8. And we know the period is always 2 pi divided by the multiplier by x. So what I'm thinking about is our standard form for a trig function that's been translated. And I'm going to pick cosine because we start off here at the peak and so does the cosine. So I'm looking for an expression like y equals a times the cosine of b times x minus h parentheses plus k. And we've just determined that A is the amplitude, that is 6. We need to calculate B up there. And then we have our K here, our midline is -1. And since I'm choosing cosine, there is no shift because cosine starts here. If I pick sine, then I would have to do a horizontal shift too. So since I'm choosing cosine, I know that h is equal to 0. So now I just got to figure out what B is. And I have an equation here to figure out B. Multiply B up and 8 down. So I'm going to get B is 2 pi over 8. Reduce that. It's pi over 4. All right, so here's what I think. I think these points make that wave, and that wave is 6 times the cosine of pi over 4x minus 1. Let's graph and see if we do have those points. Desmos, please. So again, you could just plug it in and submit it and see if it's right, but that's not a good practice for prepping for a test, right? You want to know you're right before you hit submit. So let's clear this stuff out and then switch back to radians. Always be angle conscious. All right, so we think, I'm going to call it f of x equals 6 times the cosine of pi over 4. And again, you can get cosine and pi from this menu and this menu here. And then I need times x, and then I need to shift it down 1. So that should be my graph. And then I want to, so that'll tell me like we're at peaks. So let's zoom out a sec here. So I can see a peak 0.5, another peak at 8.5. I can say I have a min at 4, -7. Okay, so I'm getting some of the values in this table. To check the midline, we have to graph the midline. So then we're going to graph y equals -1 and see if those intersection points happen at the right spot. So 2, -1, for example, and 6, -1. Back at our table, 2, -1, 6, -1. Yeah, this is checking out nice. Looks like I got the right function there. Good work. So I think this is 6 times the cosine of pi over 4 x minus 1. That was fun. Draw pictures.